If you're just joining us, I've been looking at H. Richard Niebuhr's famous book, Christ and Culture, published 75 years ago this year. In this book, based on an earlier set of lectures at Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary, Niebuhr examines what he sees as 5 typical answers to what he calls the enduring problem. That is, how do we reconcile our loyalty to Jesus Christ with the many loyalties to people and institutions we have in the world? Last week, we looked at one of the typical answers, what Niebuhr called the Christ against culture type. At once tempting and yet problematic, this is the answer that says loyalty to Christ must be our only loyalty. Loyalty to other things like country is simply impossible for a Christian. There is no reconciliation of our various loyalties. But this has been the answer of a relatively small part of the church over the years. Today, following the outline of Niebuhr's book, I want to look at the opposite end of the spectrum now, what Niebuhr calls the Christ of culture type. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Monday, June 24th, 2024. By Christ of culture, Niebuhr doesn't mean a group that celebrates the arts or high culture. They certainly may, but that's not what he means by culture here. When Niebuhr talks about culture, he means the entire spectrum of what goes into any and all civilizations. It includes the arts, but also things like language and values. He defines culture as the artificial secondary environment which man superimposes on the natural. It composes language, habits, ideas, beliefs, customs, social organizations, inherited artifacts, technical processes, and values. Culture, in other words, is simply the sum total of the social environment in which we live. What distinguishes the Christ of culture type is that unlike the Christ against culture type, these people see no great conflict between Christ and culture, no tension that needs to be resolved. They tend to identify Christian faith with the best and highest ideas and ideals and practices of culture. For this group, Jesus isn't seen as the king of a new humanity, but rather as the great teacher who comes to lift people up to a new level of enlightenment. He is like a Plato or a Socrates, only greater than all of the great moral teachers who have come before or since. Their vision of Jesus can be expressed in one brief passage from Matthew 11, where Jesus says, "Come unto me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." This is not a Jesus who makes stringent demands, but rather one who gives us a glimpse of what true humanity in communion with God looks like. This is not a Jesus who gives commands that must be obeyed, but one through example shows us the best and highest of human life in community with others. This is not the Jesus who, in anger, drives out the money changers from the temple, but the gentle Jesus who reproves the disciples when they prevent children from approaching him, saying, "Suffer the little children to come unto me, and forbid them not, for of such is the kingdom of God." This is also not a Jesus who is a stern judge condemning the world, but one who affirms the best and highest of culture's aspirations and visions. In some respects, it may even be said that this is a Christ whose purpose seems to be to confirm culture, or at least its highest elements and impulses. As we continue to take a look at this type of Christianity, we'll take a look at the same questions we looked at when we examined the Christ against culture type. What is the relationship between revealed knowledge and the knowledge we get through ordinary human experience? What is their understanding of sin and where it comes from? How does belief in Jesus Christ affect our ethics? And finally, how do they understand the Trinity? How is Jesus related to the Creator of the world? Tomorrow, though, I'm going to post a devotional from the archives, since later today I've got some dental work to be done, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to feel much like writing, let alone speaking a new devotional. But for now, May God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.